Ayy, look, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today. And Super Bowl Sunday is finally upon us, ladies and gentlemen. By the time you're listening to this episode, which will be releasing today, it'll be Super Bowl Sunday tomorrow. And so in this episode, we're going to keep it very short and sweet for you guys. We're going to pretty much get straight to our predictions, give our reasons why we're leaning towards a certain way, Super Bowl MVPs and a whole bunch of other predictions. But with that being said, before we jump into all of that, temperature check, how's everybody doing?
Man, it's been a long season, but we're finally here. Super Bowl day. It's not necessarily the prediction that I wanted to happen. Obviously, when you're rooting for your own team, but ultimately, I think if everybody had these two teams in the Super Bowl to start the season, I think it would have been a good prediction. And Chiefs versus Niners, who else? It's not really that hard to predict. I know a lot of people had other teams, maybe the Bengals, maybe the Eagles, but, Chiefs versus 49ers, not a bad take at all.
Hey, man, full year done with football. I despise the Niners making it here. It's always going to be fuck them. I feel like, you already know my take on this game. But I think we're going to be in for a nice game. A lot of people down Brock Purdy, and a lot of people, think Mahomes is going to walk through and dominate. But we'll see what happens.
Hey, man, once NFL season has come to a close, we're almost right there at the finish line. I'm just hoping we get one final good game. A Super Bowl very similar to last year's. Last year's Super Bowl was very entertaining, so I'm hoping we can get a repeat of that of some sort. But, of course, let's go ahead and jump into our predictions. The whole reason why we're here recording this episode today, as we mentioned, as everybody knows, it's the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Las Vegas. Who do you guys got and why?
Well, looking back at that 2019 matchup between these two teams, things have kind of flipped a bit. The 49ers offense is a lot better now than it was then. Their defense is a little worse than it was then. The Chiefs offense is worse now compared to then, but their defense is a lot better now compared to then. And really, the biggest difference for me in this matchup is I think Patrick Mahomes is even better now than he was then. Maybe they don't have as many huge plays as they used to have back in 2018, 2019. But Mahomes is as refined as can be. He's protecting the football. Even in these games where Bill's second half, they weren't really getting any points, but he was protecting the football. The Ravens game, they weren't getting any points in that second half. He was protecting the football. He's playing smart football. He's not playing backyard football as he was then. And I feel like now he's as refined as can be. And so my ultimate pick in this matchup is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think their defense, their pass defense, is enough to limit the threats that this 49ers team has. I know that there is going to be huge emphasis on running the game, but I feel like too much of what I've seen from the 49ers is abandoning the run too early. Christian McCaffrey's not getting the ball as much as he should be. I think that Kyle Shanahan has a tendency to kind of abandon the run when he notices that they're trailing. And the Niners just don't do well when they go down a touchdown. And that's just the reality of things. And so I feel like teams haven't punished them yet enough, for them trailing going to a fourth quarter. But, when you're against a Patrick Mahomes team, Patrick Mahomes doesn't make much mistakes. He goes for the kill shot every time. And Travis Kelce, these playoffs, he's back to doing what he does. And so he's going to be a matchup problem all night long for this team. Rashee Rice is going to be underneath contributor. These wide receivers aren't that great at all. But, the Chiefs defense has made it a point to keep them in the games in the second half. And so my pick is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be the difference here. No shock to me because I think he's going to be able to take whatever the defense gives him, and that's going to be the deciding factor.
100% agree with you, Abdi. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Bias aside, although, I very, very much hate the 49ers, I just really think, as you brought up the last matchup, I just think this Kansas City team is much different than it was last time. Obviously, Mahomes is a much better player, but I feel like this defense has stepped up and evolved to another level where they've been, playing phenomenally well for this team this whole year. And they, some games or a lot of games they have showed up and played, made some big stops, key stops. And I feel like this is compared to the two defenses the Niners have played, the Lions and the Packers. I feel like this defense is very sound. If they get an opportunity to get a turnover or to make a mistake happen, they can make that happen. We've seen it against Lamar Jackson. They forced 3 turnovers against them. They played very well that second half and the first half defensively. They, essentially they took out the best thing that the Ravens do, run the ball. They forced them not to run the ball. They were sending blitzes. They were forcing Lamar Jackson out of the pocket to make plays on his foot, to make plays with his arm, and essentially he couldn't. And I feel like in this game it's going to be the same thing. Like I mentioned, the Niners, they tend to go away from the run early on in the game, and can Purdy, stand through that fire? It's going to be. This is the third game. It's the biggest game of his career, and I feel like the Kansas City team and the way their defense is playing, it's going to be a little different for him this time. Compared to the 2 other defenses, I feel like this Kansas City defense is a much better defense. This is a top 5 defense, and hey, they got one of the best players in the league, commanding that offense. They got Mahomes. So for me, key points is that defense is going to show up, and Mahomes is going to be Mahomes. He's not going to leave no kill shots. He's not going to make no mistakes. He's going to show up, and he's going to ball out. And for the Niners, for them to have an opportunity to win this game and, show up, but like they just got to go off CMC, man. Run the ball with CMC. Get the ball to Debo. Get the ball to you guys in an open field and see what happens. But Brock Purdy got to stand through that fire. I can't wait.
This prediction for me was one that was extremely hard. I mean, I think obviously this is a good Super Bowl matchup between these two teams. We saw a little bit of it 4 years ago in the same exact spot, but it's just 2 completely different situations, as you mentioned, Abdi. The Niners have gotten a lot better offensively, but a little worse defensively, and vice versa for the same thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. But I didn't necessarily want to have to pick a team for this game. I just want to sit here and enjoy it as a casual fan because as you guys all know, I'm not the biggest Mahomes guy, and so I really don't want to have to bet against him. But if there's ever a time that I was going to bet against him, I think now would be the perfect time to. I failed 4 straight picks, actually 3 in a row, leading up to this point. But I'm just gonna go ahead and go with the San Francisco 49ers. I think everything so far in their postseason run has aligned perfectly for them. Nothing has been easy. Nothing has been given to them. Everything has been earned completely. When you go to that Green Bay game where they had to march down the field and get a game-winning touchdown drive, and they had to force Jordan Love into some turnovers. Next thing you know, you have to play a red-hot Detroit Lions team in the NFC Championship game where you have to, come back from 17 down to win that game and pretty much shut them out in the second half completely. So, to get to this point, the Niners have shown that they're a battle-tested team. So it's like I mentioned in our last episode, everything that they've gone through so far has pretty much prepared them, for this matchup against Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, once again, they're in the Super Bowl. And even though this is the worst version of the Kansas City Chiefs we've ever seen so in their dynasty run so far, it's still a very, very good team. But defensively, it's just in their past defense, one of the best. But their running defense isn't necessarily the greatest. And the Buffalo Bills had the blueprint. That was the closest matchup so far for this Kansas City Chiefs team in their playoff run. And the Miami Dolphins couldn't do it. The Baltimore Ravens went away from it completely, even though that's their whole identity. But for the Buffalo Bills, when they played the Kansas City Chiefs, they showed everybody that, we can run the ball on this team. And then after that, that'll open up some opportunities in the passing game. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough for that Bills team. But for the Niners, I think it's going to be extremely different because, number one, you have Christian McCaffrey. The whole reason why you brought Christian McCaffrey over here to the Bay Area was for you to run him to the ground in a position like this. Christian McCaffrey, as great as he is as a player, with all the injury history that he's had throughout his career, this is the moment. This is his time to shine. Even though he's been great all season long, for one final game, the game plan for the Niners is pretty much simple. It's you get the ball in CMC's hands and you let him do his thing. And once he gets tired, with Kyle Shanahan and his smart mind and his offensive playbook, you could switch things up and throw Debo into the mix as well. You could throw a little bit of Juwan Jennings. But at the end of the day, for Kyle Shanahan, this is pretty much the final straw for him, because I feel like if he's not able to capitalize on this opportunity, there's never going to be another opportunity again. Because with how talented this roster is, with how much better offensively you are in comparison to the last time you were here, it's now or never. And so, you don't necessarily have to deal with a quarterback like Jimmy G that held you back in certain spots where you had to kind of cater towards him and baby him in a certain way. You can rely on Brock Purdy. You can trust Brock Purdy. But in the end, you have to just give CMC the ball and start him off early. And then the offense will work out itself from there. You want to take as much pressure off it from Brock Purdy as you possibly can. Because if you make it a Brock Purdy versus Patrick Mahomes matchup, that's a matchup that I'm not comfortable at, saying that that Purdy can win. I can't comfortably say Brock Purdy is going to come out with the W in that situation. I think it's going to take a complete team effort on that offensive side of the ball, with a lot of the pressure and a lot of the the weight being carried on CMC's shoulders. Because I think, like I said, the Kansas City Chiefs run defense, it's a little bit shaky, and you have the best running back in the league. You might as well just run him to the ground, because this is the last game. There's nothing that you could possibly have to worry about in the future. Empty out the gas tank. And Brock Purdy, if you need him to make a couple of plays in against this pass defense, you got the weapons. You have Debo, you have Ayuk, you have Kittle. You could work outside of that, but it's pretty much simple for me. So I think this game is going to come down to CMC. I think it's going to be a very extremely high scoring game. I think both these teams might end up somewhere, I want to say, like mid to high 20s. So if I had to put a score on it, I would probably say 31-28, San Francisco. But that's definitely been my prediction. Like I can't sit here and count out Patrick Mahomes, and as tough as it is, I will do it in this spot. And I just think if Kyle Shanahan sticks to the game plan that I have in mind for this team, all should be well. I think this Niners defense, their front seven has to do a great job at getting after Patrick Mahomes. That's number one. You can't let Patrick Mahomes have all the time in the world and to dance in that pocket and wait for guys to get open and downfield, because this Niners secondary is barbecue chicken, but their front seven is where they make their money at. So guys like Bosa, guys like Chase Young, and their linebacker duo in Greenlaw and Fred Warner have to show up. But
how confident do you feel about the Niners if they go into this fourth quarter trailing? Do you feel like they can still pull it out?
I think they can. How confident am I on a scale from 1 to 10? Probably 5. So not too confident, but have a little bit of confidence in them. I think it's just because the fact that you have to put up points on this Kansas City Chiefs defense, and then if it's the fourth quarter, you probably got to throw the ball a little bit more than you would in the first quarter when you were down. And so just having to see how the game is going along so far for Brock Purdy, being down is no issue. It's nothing that he hasn't seen before, but obviously there's a lot of pressure that's going to be on his shoulders in the fourth quarter if he's down. Obviously with it being the Super Bowl and it being Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and this Kansas City Chiefs pass defense. But I think, at the end of the day, this is, like I said, everything that they've gone through so far has pretty much prepared them for this type of moment. And so, even though it might be on the highest stage, the Niners have seen it all. So they haven't had a comfortable road to get to this point. So, at the end of the day, things may be a little bit tough, but, I personally just see them getting this one and pulling it out. The Kansas City Chiefs, they've had a hell of a run, where you beat Miami, you beat Buffalo, you beat Baltimore, the Red Hot Ravens, where two out of those 3 games were on the road. And, now they've gone here, and everybody didn't necessarily think they'd get here, but I think personally the road ends here. And then for this Kansas City Chiefs team, they'll probably go into the offseason looking for, a receiver and stuff like that. But for this specific matchup, I got the Niners winning 31-28. And then I think for my Super Bowl MVP, it won't be Brock Purdy. It'll be CMC. CMC having the day, having a great game. And this is probably, like I said, it's his moment. It's his time to win. And everybody has always said, it's not Brock Purdy leading this team. It's all the weapons around him. to Debo, to Ayuk, to Kittle, to CMC at the top of the list, this offensive line, Trent Williams, and, their defense and their front seven. But, for this Super Bowl game, it's going to fall on the shoulders of CMC. And if they want to win, it goes through him. That's the only way.
I think mine would probably end up being Patrick Mahomes, just because I don't see a person on the Kansas City receiving core going off for an absolutely huge game. Travis Kelce probably have like 80, 90 yards, possibly a touchdown, but it's nothing that'll amount to, him ending up with the Super Bowl MVP, unless he ends up with like 150 and 2 touchdowns, which I don't think is likely in this Kansas City Chiefs offense that hasn't been as explosive as it used to be. But Patrick Mahomes is probably going to be my Super Bowl MVP. I think he's the guy that's going to be obviously the biggest difference maker on the field, the best player on the field for both teams, matter of fact. And so for him, coming into this matchup, he has a lot to prove. The amount of struggles that they've gone through this year, being on the road constantly throughout this playoffs, and then just absolutely proving everybody wrong. I think this is a huge, boost to his legacy. So he's going to be my Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, I'll probably say Patrick Mahomes as well. It's tough to go against him, and it's like, unless Kelce or Pacheco or somebody that has like a big day with 120 yards or 2 tugs or something like that. Other than that, to me, it's going to be Mahomes. Maybe somebody on the defense. Who knows? Maybe.
I was watching ESPN First Take earlier this week, and they asked they posed a very interesting question. They said, should the NFL like move away, from giving the Super Bowl MVP award to quarterbacks and try to reward other players that are playing in the game from different positions, because it's pretty common for a Super Bowl MVP to be a quarterback. The last time a non-quarterback won was what Julian Edelman when the Patriots won. I may be wrong there, but then the Seattle defensive player when they beat the Broncos. But it's
you said
not
when was the last time a non-offensive player won it?
A non-quarterback, just a non-quarterback in general.
Who won it?
I know.
Who won it for the Rams? Was it Matthew Stafford or was it Cooper Kupp?
I don't remember.
I think it
was it Cooper Kupp?
It might have been Cooper Kupp. I'm not gonna lie. Who was it? I could have sworn it was Cooper Kupp.
Yes. Cooper Kupp. Yes, you're
White
right.
MVP too.
What's up?
James White.
Did he? I know Julian Edelman definitely won in that Rams game.
That Rams game, he won. James White, Super Bowl MVP. That's kind of crazy.
I know he had 3 touchdowns.
No, he didn't. No. Tom Brady. Tom Brady had 466, 2 tugs in a pick.
Like the last time a defensive player won, it was probably Von Miller or something.
Yeah, Von Miller.
It was
probably last time a defensive player won it.
Malcolm Smith back to back, I think.
Oh yeah, Malcolm Smith did win it 2014 that one year.
Yeah, so that was the question that they posed. Should the NFL kind of gear away from just giving out the Super Bowl MVP to the quarterback?
I mean, I feel like obviously there's going to be a slight bias to quarterbacks, but I feel like since it's just a singular game, they're going to view at how much impact you had. Like Von Miller had that huge play in that Super Bowl. Malcolm Smith had a huge play in that Super Bowl. So they're just going to look at, how much impact, Nick Bosa, he might end up with a strip sack, stuff like that, little plays like that. He might have a strip sack that leads to a touchdown. I think they're going to look at it as a singular play thing. I think they're going to remove the bias of the MVP type bias where it's strictly a quarterback thing. Obviously, there's slight bias, but at the end of the day, I think they're just going to look at which player you have has most memorable play of the game, which, might go to that defensive player.
That's fair. My last question before we get out of here and we close out this short episode. What would a third Super Bowl do for Mahomes' legacy?
I mean, there's not what else is there left to say after that? People came into this saying, well, he hasn't played on the road. Everybody was like, okay, Patrick Mahomes on the road. Let's see if he's really like that. He beats the Dolphins, and then he has another rematch with Josh Allen. He beats him. Then everybody's saying, well, it's a number 1 seed. Now he's at Lamar Jackson's home. This is the MVP, the guy who just won his second MVP. Let's see how he does against him. He beats him. And then now he's going up against the best team in the NFC, and he beats them as well. You can't really say anything after that. What question marks can you really have about Patrick Mahomes after that? Not the slightest. He's done it throwing the ball, getting 50 touchdowns in a season. He's done it doing 35 touchdowns in a season, protecting the football. He's done it efficiently. That's really it. There's nothing to say about him after that.
Hey, man, he already know me too, man. He chasing the ghost right now, you know? He chasing Tom Brady. It's just going to add to his resume. There's really not much you can say against it. Like, he's done everything. He showed everything. And he keeps on getting better and better every single year. And it just adds to the resume, whether it's an MVP one year, whether it's a Super Bowl win or another Super Bowl MVP in his pocket. He's really top two. And he already cemented it. You really can't say much about that.
Yeah, his legacy secured, man. Really...
Patrick Mahomes is currently 28 years old. If he secures his third Super Bowl by age 28, I'm a little worried from my GOAT Tom Brady, man, and I'll personally just leave it at that. But with that being said, any final words before we close out this episode and enjoy ourselves a nice football game tomorrow?
A Brock Purdy Super Bowl is bad for the sport. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. It's bad for the sport.
Niners Super Bowl is bad.
Niners Super Bowl is also bad for the sport.
Oh man, a Brock Purdy Super Bowl. I don't think we'll see you in the next episode if Brock Purdy comes away with this Super Bowl.
I will not be there, bro. I will not be there.
Me neither. You can bring all the Niner fans.
I'll not be there, man.
Yeah, no call, no show, man. But hey, as always, we're all hoping for an amazing Super Bowl, regardless of who the winner is. As long as it's entertaining to us, that's all that matters. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Being out late now, that's overkill.